Hey everyone, Joe and Jay here. We wanted to take a moment and say thank you to all the men and women of our armed services that have kept our country free since 1776.
Along with our first responders who keep our cities and its citizens safe in spite of all the controversies you face every day.
Thank you for joining us this and every single episode. We appreciate your viewership and loyalty to the channel.
So enjoy your well-earned day with friends and family, and from our families to yours, happy Independence Day.
And God bless America. Hey y'all, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, this is Joe and Jay Outspoken. Don't forget to follow all of our platforms. You can find them by going to Linktree/Joe and Jay Outspoken. We are on Rumble, Locals, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Today's show is for Tuesday, July 4th. I'm Jay, and today we're going to be covering a controversial topic that has been gaining momentum. So, Joe, what are we going to be discussing today and next week?
Well, in part one of this two-part series, we'll be talking about why we're seeing so many corporations, cities, and hospitals joining the LGBTQ ideology and what is really driving their support. So don't go anywhere because you'll be amazed of what's really going on.
Wow, here we go. My eco-friendly ice chest from Target is full of Bud Light already. All right, welcome back, everybody. Here we go with America's Woke. So, what are we going to discuss here, Joe? This is going to be a good one. It's going to be a little spicy, huh?
It's going to be interesting. So, one of the things that we've been noticing a lot, and you see it with a lot of the companies. They've been on the news lately, right? You've seen Target, you've seen Kohl's. Everyone does it. During Pride Month, Bud Light. During Pride Month, they include the Rainbow Coalition colors into logos, or somehow they're supporting the movement, right? The ideology behind the LGBTQ. Well, the new ideology, right? Because back when you and I were younger, the ideology was very different. It was more based on equal rights in marriage, healthcare, being recognized as a couple, and things like that. So people have been wondering. I know I wondered, why is there so much support? I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, we're talking about people's sexual preference. We're not really talking about a race or anything like that, right? We're talking about sexuality. Let's be honest. That's what everything we've been seeing is about. So what is driving that? Why are corporations so ready and eager to jump into that LGBTQ ideology? Well, let me tell you why. Back in 1980, there was a foundation that was founded for gay rights. It was called the Human Rights Campaign, right, or HRC.
The HRC.
It was established back in 1980. In 1985, they merged with the Gay Rights National Lobby, and what they were doing is they were trying to get more outed gays into politics, right? To help reform some of these things, to kind of get a leg in, right? And they were really driving these gay marriages. And back in the 80s, we had a lot of evangelists. We had a lot of church things going on. And there was just so many controversy that even the left was like, okay, man, you guys are kind of getting out of control. Let's not talk about all this right now.
Yeah, Jim and Tammy Faye Baker, man, they didn't do any good for the for the religious community.
Oh no, they were not friends of the LGBTQ. Let me tell you, but they kind of toned it down, right? They went away from pushing that agenda, and the left, they were ready to listen to the left, right? Because they are. The HRC is a mostly left group. So you're going to see, they also have a charitable arm, which is called the HRCF, the Human Rights Campaign Foundation. It's also part of the Super PAC, right? Super PAC. They've also received billions, and you'll see some of these people who have contributed to the HRCF and to the HRC in general. But anyway, So they toned it down a little bit, right? And it wasn't until the 2000s that they really started advocating more, started coming a little bit more popular. The left kind of had nothing left, right? They what the 2000s, what they have, right? The Clintons they didn't have much to go with, right? So they're like, all right, let's jump on the
Don't
LGBTQ
say
one.
anything. Don't say anything bad about them, man. We want to be back next week.
You're not wrong. So the HRC is considered a nonprofit. Um, and it is also the largest LGBTQ advocate group. It's a left view organization. In 2020, right? In 2020, of course, they had to do, because it's nonprofit, they have to give up all their financial information. Their revenue was listed at $46 billion. Okay, their
Wow.
assets $19 billion, and of course the charitable arm of that, the HRCF, they were at $19 billion as well. So now it's more about
amazing.
building relationships with powerful, mostly Democratic Party, right? The campaigns, they run campaigns, they advocate for the left, right? So and they'll do anything they can to kind of, how can I say, what's the word I want to look for that's politically correct, but kind of like defeat any kind of campaigns that the conservative might be running. Yeah. But how do they do this? You know how they do this? You know how HRC does this?
How did they
You
do
might
this, Joe?
you might think it's like, oh, it's the LGBT community. They're not very aggressive, or they don't have a lot of. Remember what I said? This is the largest LGBTQ advocacy group out there. They how they get what they want is they place pressure on corporations, law firms, hospitals, local government into implementing socially liberal policies. Okay.
Gosh, it sounds like credit scoring,
Well,
like social credit scoring.
that's what it is. But this is things that people don't know, right? People don't understand all these things. They get rated. All these companies get rated about that. But that's further down the line. We're going to talk about that. But they apply this pressure. Yeah, they apply this pressure under the basis of socially of social policies, right? Equal rights. Nothing in that campaign says anything about LGBTQ, right? All it says is human rights campaign. That's all you're saying. Most of you, if you go out to like Target or Kohl's or some of these, you know how you'll see advertising like, hey, you buy this and your money 5% will get donated to the human rights campaign.
Right.
Their symbol is a blue box with a yellow equal sign in a minute. I'm sure we've all seen it. I was in a store the other day and I saw it in a Pedigree dog food ad. So they're everywhere. So they created, like you said earlier, a credit system, a scoring system, right, for these corporations. So they broke it down into 3 different equality indexes. So there's 3 different ones that they get scored on. There's a corporate equality index, right? So that deals with corporations, right? There's the municipality or the municipal equality index, which deals with cities and townships. And then you got the healthcare equality index, all right? And that, of course, deals with healthcare, hospitals, doctors, and whatnot. So each one of those categories, and we'll get to this on our second part. All these equality indexes were created by the HRC. And they rank these corporations, these municipalities, and healthcare and things like that. So it's kind of crazy, right? How that works. You're thinking like, man, that's kind of, you've kind of monopolized some areas here, right? So in looking into this and researching it a little bit, I'm thinking, okay, like who funds these campaign? Who's funding these people, right? So and as I researched this, Jay, it started to make sense with all these controversies that are happening all over the world, right? One of the major donors to the HRC is the National Education Association, right? It's a union that provides resources, right, to the schools. But if you go onto the NEA website, all right, they have a section there that provides resources to understanding white supremacy culture, white privilege, and white frailty. So I'm like, or fragility, and I'm thinking, what's that mean? What is all that? Why would you put that on there? Like
I'm
this
so
is a
fragile, Joe. I'm so fragile.
but again, trust me, when you look at the definition of that, it has nothing to do with y'all being fragile. Okay, so
Right.
and I'm looking at that. I'm like, okay, first of all, why do you continue with this division, right, of racism and bringing this in but you start thinking about it, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, if they're a big donor, right, they believe in what they believe in, they're funding them, so in turn they're implementing these things into their belief, right? So the National Education Association is like, hey, guess what? They exist. They're out there. There's such thing as white supremacy culture. There's white privilege. There's some white fragility out there going on. There's all these things are happening on their website. Another group that they are highly that donate a lot to the HRC is the United Food and Commercial Workers. Right, that's the grocery
I
store
saw
union.
that grocery union. Yeah.
And so you'll see them everywhere, right? I mean, they're going to stand up for that. You see, and here's the thing: when I said that, it starts making sense. Going back real quick to the National Education Association, what do you start seeing now more in the classrooms? What are you seeing?
Oh yeah, it's a lot more of the things that are based
LGBTQ, right? The ideology.
Absolutely. I mean, the flag that's behind me now that has been replaced by the rainbow flag in the classrooms. I don't even know if they have American flags in the classrooms anymore.
And what else have they been replaced with? Pronouns, right? Now you have all these things that now you have a union behind that, and that union is the National Education Association, who's the one that's like saying, "Hey, you guys, equality, equality, equality." They're funding the HRC, right? Who this is their ideology. The United Food and Commercial Workers, same thing, right? You're starting to see this. You're for those people that work in the major grocery chains, I'm sure you have all kinds of diversity and inclusion classes going on. I'm sure they celebrate in so many different ways. They have pins, they have colors, the United We Are, all kinds of things you're going to see, right? And here's the thing, it doesn't bother me, Jay. It really doesn't. This is something I want to make clear to our listeners, is I'm not upset about that. Is that why are you celebrating sexuality, a preference of people? I mean, I mean, how close, how fine is that line that we're one step away of looking at? Now, keep in mind, they're talking about sexuality, right? They're proud about their sexuality. How close are we for them to start saying, hey, we're proud about pedophile, right? Or man boy love, or, all that stuff, well, you're not, there's no division going on now. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's kind of already creeping in there. And, my opinion on that whole thing is like, listen, again, and you and I have said this before, and I would say for most of the conservative country, right, people really don't care what you do in your own bedroom, in your own home.
Absolutely.
In your personal life. Nobody cares. They really don't. Do they agree with it? Maybe not. But they don't.
But what
really
businesses are?
Right. And the thing is that, so I'm a, straight heterosexual male, right? And I don't want to be debatable.
Wow. Oh, whatever. Sorry.
All right, I'm going to put a disclaimer up here. So you and I, Joe, are somewhere together, right? Mm-hmm. And we're at a restaurant or something. I don't want to see a heterosexual couple making out and groping all over each other, right? I don't. And especially if there's kids in the in the presence. So the thing is that this isn't just a one-sided thing. This is for everybody. I don't want there to be a straight parade, right? I don't want there to be a straight parade where a bunch of straight guys
about a white parade.
White parade. Yeah, where they're walking naked down the street, right?
Oh,
and
God.
celebrating their what is it, cisness or whatever, and straightness.
No,
I don't want
that
either.
we're cis. We're the cis people.
We're the cis, yeah. So, what do you cut? So, are guys cis, and what are females?
No, we're both cis.
Like,
It's cis male or female.
oh, we are.
Cis means
So
that you're
cis male.
naturally born and identify as your naturally
Mhm.
born gender.
Yeah, I call that male, female.
Yeah, that's what I do
So,
too. I'm like,
just
don't give me a cis. I don't know a cis. But
you don't
but
need,
you're
yeah, you don't need to add more
no
definitions to
so
stuff that
just
was already
leave it
there.
alone. But you're
Yeah.
right. So those are the things that are happening. So let me say, now, does it end there? No, there are 54 other major corporations, and I encourage you guys to go look this up, the HRC, and see who some of their donors are. Let me give you a few examples: Target, Google, Apple,
Surprise.
Hershey, Amazon, Pfizer. What? Pfizer? Yeah, Pfizer. And these are just an example. It's funny because so I was going through the HRC website, right? And I'm going through there, just looking at stuff, trying to fit in with the flow, right? And what's at
Trying
the
to
very bottom?
understand.
They have at the very bottom they have a commercial banner from Amazon. I'm like, oh, look at there. Makes sense, right? So these corporations now, whether they're there, so you have to keep in mind these companies have been around and are around because they make savvy business decisions, right? They make some kind of good business decision that they've been around for years, right? Target Corporation, right? Target started off as a little company. They tore away from their bigger company that they had. I forgot what it was called. Jay,
Dayton Hudson Corporation.
Dayton Hudson. They separated from Dayton Hudson. Target, it was the one that started making all the money, and then they finally closed Dayton Hudson, right? And it became a Target brand. So they were clearly doing smart things, right? Clearly Anheuser-Busch did not, but they were doing smart moves. So what they're doing now, I don't want to say they agree with what they're doing, but they've been forced to, right? Because now we live in a society of cancel cultures, right? But here's the thing. America as a whole, I'm not talking left, I'm not talking right. America as a whole has gone to the point where, like, okay, look, we're tired of this, right? We don't want to hear any more of this stuff, right? So people are starting to get upset. So moving on. Now, the HRFC, right, which is the charitable arm of the HRC, here's some of their major donors, right? So remember, this is the same company or the same foundation, except that they've separated one because so the HRCF, right, the Human Rights Campaign Foundation, they're able, because of how they created that foundation, they're able to have a little bit more freedom in getting money from other charitable companies. All right, so it's kind of like a back door taxes wise. So, but they're still part of the HRC. So some of their major donors, you might remember, or you might recognize this name, Silicon Valley Community Foundation, right? Didn't we just didn't a bank just go bankrupt in Silicon Valley?
Yeah, it did.
That's weird. So anyway, this company, Silicon Valley Community Foundation, they provide grants for abortion care, right? ACLU, affirmative action funding, and of course, environmental.
The environment. Yeah.
So that's what they do, right? And the other major, and I'm sure sounds familiar, the other major donor to the HRCF is the Soros Fund Charitable Foundation.
I knew you were going to say that. Why did I know that?
Why did I know
that guy,
that?
His tentacles are in everything. And
Oh,
now
my
that he's
goodness.
passed it over to his son, it's going to be even worse.
Oh my God. So as you know, Soros Foundation or Fund Charitable Foundation also funds the ACLU, right? Planned Parenthood, and of course our favorite SPLC, which is the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's another joke. Yeah. So all those groups, which I personally feel are hate groups myself, right? Because they only go after certain groups, right?
Right.
There's no equality whatsoever in how they run and do their business.
Right.
Um, so these foundations, so if you look at it, this group, these foundations, they're like lobbyists, right? That to senators, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they're coming from the woodwork. They donate. They have so many different foundations. They're covered by one and then the other. I mean, it's a rabbit hole. You can keep digging and digging and digging.
Yeah.
And that's what's wrong with us today is that these corporations are forced, they're being forced. And we're just talking about corporations right now, but it's also in our municipalities, right? In our towns. Are we seeing a lot more of this LGBTQ ideology going on in some of your local towns? Absolutely. It's mostly the
Yeah.
major towns, right? It's in our healthcare, right? And you'll be amazed. Next week when we talk about this, you're going to sit there and like, are you serious about that? That's how they score it. And when I started reading into this, I'm thinking, I'm like, that's just disgusting. That's just wrong. How could they get away with that? These are the criteria they make.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Well, it's market and system manipulation, and we've seen that in so many aspects of society, especially in the last, since 2020. I think one of our last episodes I spoke on how since 2020 that was a pivotal year. There were so many things that happened that changed like extremely drastically in that year coming forward to now to
yeah.
2023. And and you're right, man. Those you had mentioned like the Soros fund group, and some of those other ones being very I don't want to say racist, but that's kind of the way they are. These are hate groups.
Discriminative. They
So
discriminate.
yeah, they're discriminative. Any company, organization, or anything that separates anybody by a group, like there's this whole thing going on with colleges right now, where they were going to make it where they would admit people based on their skin color
Mm-hmm.
easier more than
Affirmative
somebody of
action.
another affirmative action. Yeah. So somebody of another skin color, what have you. That's racist, dude, period. If you say, well, we're getting too many Asian people into our schools. Well, if they score better and they do better, hello, let them
Uh,
in,
that's the purpose, right?
that's the purpose. Yeah, you want the so here's the super super extremely silly thing about this thought process. So you're going to say in a college, well, we need to have a more diverse system in the college, right? Based on
Mm-hmm.
populace and everything. We don't need so many, and I'm not picking on Asian people. I'm just saying that, more Asian people typically are let in, so that's who they're going after and saying,
Right.
they shouldn't be allowed into colleges. So let me ask you then, should we make it for like basketball teams for them to be more ethnically diverse? Should we have more Asians and Hispanics and different folks on the basketball team? No. You know what? People are going to laugh at that and say, no, we put the best players on the team, and just
Right.
because they happen to be of a certain height and a certain skin color has nothing to do with any of that. It just happens to be they're the best at the job.
Exactly.
Exactly. Hello. That's exactly where it's at. So whenever folks are being put into positions, wherever it's at, if you happen to be a female, you happen to be a male, you happen to have a certain skin color, you're a certain religion, nobody cares.
No.
Like if you, when, you and I start some kind of business, right? And we're hiring employees, who are we going to hire? The best people. I don't care what color they are. I don't
No.
care, what sex, what they, and honestly, and today's thing is kind of, heavily influenced by the LGBT community as far as what's going on in today's time. I would absolutely hire somebody from that community if they are the best and most qualified for that job. It has
Exactly.
nothing to do with anything, their sexual preference has nothing to do with skin color, has nothing to do with sex, anything, any of that kind of stuff. Specifically, we are not supposed to be judging people on any of that stuff. And yet these companies, these corporations, these entities are exactly doing that. And so they are being very discriminatory.
Yeah.
And they need to stop it. And it needs to be something that, we almost got rid of this stuff, right? It kept going on. And the people in play, the people in power didn't want that, because you can, people are like sheep, right? And you can guide them and get them into the corral that you want them in
Yeah.
if they all believe the same. And if you make them believe that that this corral over here is good and the people in that corral over there are bad. So we've got to get away from this. Everybody's heard the word divide and conquer. I can't say it enough. Everybody in this country wants the same thing. We want to have a decent life. We want to, be able to spend time with our families. We want to have our friends and such that we love and care for and everything. It has nothing to do with any of this other nonsense. Yet they've banged it into people's heads to get them to, believe all this stuff. But the last one on that thing on the major donors for HRCF is who? Planned
Soros
Parenthood.
Fund? Oh yeah, Planned Parenthood.
This one, Planned Parenthood. Yeah. So when you come full circle on that, you start seeing their manipulation of, from young adults to how they manipulate women and, the LGBT community. And they're really using them for their vote and for their, pushing whatever direction they want to go.
Let's face it. I mean, the left does that now, right? They feed off of what they ask for, right? So us minorities, we're asking for, hey, get us better policies so we could, come to the United States easier, right? So the left is like, oh, we're going to do this for you, we're going to do that for you, boom, 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 right? And then we vote them in, and guess what happens? Nothing. But this is what they do. The HRC is the same thing. Let me tell you why. All right. We've talked mostly about the LGBTQ community regarding the HRC, right? But you want to know, here are some of the policies that they support. Okay. And I'm going to leave the best one for last because it's kind of offensive in a way to me, at least. And it's kind of sad how the government allows things like this to happen. So some of the policies that HRC, the Human Rights, I forgot the committee or campaign. I apologize. The HRC is
there's so many acronyms,
bro. I can't keep up with the acronyms. Like everyone loves acronyms in the government. So here's some of the policies they support. And for all I know, they probably helped write them. Requiring faith-based adoption agencies to place children with same-sex couples. Okay. So now at this point, you're taking away someone else's beliefs and rights away to accommodate for yours. So I don't think that's fair. Do you think that's fair?
No,
of course not.
At all.
No, I don't think anyone thinks that's fair. Also, banning anti-LGBTQ foreign nationals from entry to the U.S. All right.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So all is welcome. Everyone's welcome unless you have something to say about the LGBTQ. And if you don't like us, guess what? You're not coming in.
Right. Well,
kind of weird, bro. Kind of weird. You know what I mean? And I'm lucky I got in before these people came around because they were recording to 80. I'm 72, bro. So you know what I mean? I got lucky. I'm just kidding. Well, I'm not anti-LGBTQ.
Not making it all political or anything, but you remember when Mr. Trump was in office, and
that's President Trump. President Trump.
Yeah, they made a big deal out of him closing down the borders and everything because of and he didn't want to bring people in from what's that?
Because of COVID,
no,
or just a general
COVID?
Oh yeah,
this was before COVID. This was he didn't want folks flying in from some of the Middle Eastern countries. And the thing is that he was considered a racist and all this, and they knew that there was folks that were trying to, do stuff. And it doesn't
fit the narrative, Jay. It doesn't.
Right. It didn't fit the narrative at the time. And at that time, I mean, they were trying to keep, you have to understand the government, the CIA, the FBI, all these, organizations in the government, they have information about things that are potential that might happen. And we're not going to talk about 9/11 because that's a whole different thing. But when that whole deal happened, 9/11, there was people afterwards that said, listen, the CIA, the FBI knew things and they should have acted on it. Right. And people complained about it. Well, The thing is, if they would have acted on it, somebody would have said, why did you do that? You shouldn't have done that because it was racist or whatever against these
Yeah.
certain people. So again, going back to that, he was basically called a racist and everything because he was trying to protect our country and our border from potential things, right? Happening. So now, same thing's happening. These folks are going to say, well, you know, we don't want these folks coming into because and it's because of their religion. So are we going to go against, you know, religions now and say that, well, because they don't believe?
Let me
right?
finish. You haven't let me finish. The best part comes at the end of that one.
Yeah.
So trust me. So here's some other ones, and this one got to my soul. This one hurt me right in the heart. Expanding regulations and restrictions on 2A. Come on. I don't know what the LGBTQ has to do with that. Why y'all leave us alone, bro? Leave us alone.
Yeah.
Why you want, you know what I mean? Anyway, federal funding of sex education with pro LGBTQ content. So there's this one I truly do not agree. I do not agree whatsoever. I think the birds and the bees topic in high school was good enough, right? The biology of the human body is enough. You know what? Do we need to be teaching pro LGBTQ content as well? That's that's a sexual preference. Why are they forcing this? Why? You know, this is what irritates me the most, man. I don't know. Anyway, another one is criminalization of programs purporting to treat or cure same-sex attractions.
Yeah,
I'm just, so that's my look of. Are you kidding me? Because you know what that's saying, right? They're making it illegal for you to send your child or anybody to speak to someone about their feelings, their confusion, about whatever it is, right? They're trying to make that criminal, like any program. Like, let's say, like, hey, I'm really confused, blah blah blah. Oh, that you're trans or you're gay. Oh, you know, you're bisexual. We're not going to talk about it anymore. That's what it is. You feel that way. That's what it is. Right. I heard this somewhere. I don't know, on a social media platform. It's like telling somebody who's anorexic, you know what? You look good just how you look. You know, you're fine. You're fine. Don't let someone tell you there's nothing wrong with you. Yeah, there's medically something wrong with you, you know, but psychology, but in your head, psychologically, there's other things wrong with you, right? Because you look at yourself and you think that you're overweight, right? There's a lot of problems going on with that. But to sit there and say, hey, no, you're fine. No, especially young kids. What do you think is going to happen when you're talking about this in school all the time? What do you think is going to happen when you're talking about LGBTQs? When you're talking about pronouns? When you're talking about, oh, hey, kids, this is, you know, how I identify, and flags are everywhere. Everything's happening. How you're shoving in their face every day? How are they not going to be confused, especially at a young age? You know what I mean? That's what irritates me the most about these things is that, all right, why do you want to normalize sexuality? That's the stuff you keep behind doors, you know?
Right.
You don't bring that out. You don't see straight people doing that, you know? If they do, they get arrested, right? You can't be out there fornicating, right? Hanging out with your butt cheeks hanging out in the middle of the street. What's going to happen? What's going to happen?
We tried that once. We got in a lot of trouble for it. So
it was in a bowling alley, bro. We're lucky we were in a bowling alley, okay? Because that's crazy. Anyway, limitation on states' ability to fight election fraud and protect the integrity of their elections. Huh. I feel like that's a little one that I feel like that's the left that squeezed that in there a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, hey, let's throw this in here, guys. You know? So that's why I think that they go hand in hand with each other, right? These foundations and the government, they work in hand. They're like lobbyists, you know?
Right.
So the first one that the first thing that I want to talk about that I left for last, as far as the policies that they support, is the Equality Act. You ever heard about that act? You've heard of that, right?
I
The
have.
Equality Act, right? That's kind of that was a Biden even spoke about that when he got elected, right?
Right.
That about the whole Equality Act. So, in short, right? It's a sexual orientation and gender identity protected under federal civil rights law. So they want to include that into the civil rights law. Okay. So let me read a little bit. The legislation would prohibit legal defenses based on the Religious Freedom Restoration Act of 1993, which in short means um, any faith-based organization would be forced to violate their religious belief about gender and sexual orientation or face penalties under the law. I like them apples.
That's pretty crazy.
So, in order to protect this whole sexual orientation and gender identity, you have to violate the Religious Freedom Restoration Act.
Right.
How does that make
Yeah.
sense? That's the thing that got to me. I'm like, oh, okay. These guys took these guys took the whole sacrificial lamb thing seriously. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They
Well, the
are
thing that
literally going to sacrifice religion to give it to the LGBT community in this Equality Act.
Yeah, right. Well, the thing that disturbs me in all this, to not be, you know, segregative. Is that a word?
It is today.
So where
it
you're
is
not,
today.
it is today. So I'm gonna have that word identify as proper. It's a Scrabble word. We got it. So you're gonna tell me that we're gonna give this person rights by taking away this other person's rights. That's a problem. You know, the thing is that every organization, every group of people, regardless of what it is, right? If it's, like I say, if it's sexual based, or based on sex, if it's based on color of skin, religion, anything, you're not going to take away one person's religion to give another person religion. You're not going to take away one person's rights because of this color of their skin to give another person, you know, we have not always been perfect in our country, and neither has any other country in the rest of the world. There's been some atrocities in this world, and all you have to do, and the thing that's shameful, really shameful right now in our country, is that our schools are teaching so much of this nonsense, right?
Oh.
And the thing is that kids can learn a lot of stuff. They have encyclopedias at their fingertip as a phone or a computer or a laptop or a tablet or whatever they have. And you can look up all kinds of stuff. Now, of course, the internet always tells the truth, right? But if they want to dig into things that are, especially Google, yeah, if they want to dig into things, they can find it. All of these kind of things that are being taught in schools that are completely leftist based, right? And have, most of the stuff has no factual stuff. It's all feeling based, right? Where it's you're taking the emotional baggage from a group of folks that feel that this has affected us over umpteen amount of time. And so now somebody else has to pay for that in one sense or another, whether it's physically, monetarily, socially, by this credit score system or whatever it is. And it's really it's asinine to think that we're going to take certain people's rights away to afford somebody else to have their rights. Really, nobody's having their rights taken away unless somebody does it.
Create your own church, right? I mean, how many religions does the United States have? We are at liberty to have as many as you like, to study and worship whatever you want. I mean, it happens all the time, right? Why would you force a other religion, a faith-based organization to violate their own religious beliefs about gender?
Right.
You can't.
Well, there's been a lot of this has been chipped away at, right? So we've said in other episodes that you and I have and have had over the years, friends in the LGBT community, right? And that that we love to death, wonderful people and everything, and it has nothing to do with us personally, shaming them or anything like that. On the contrary, we would stand by their sides with anything. The thing is the problem is that this whole architecture, right? These groups that get together that want to destroy other groups. So when the whole gay marriage thing came in, right? This is long before any of the transgender stuff that's going on right now. The gay marriage deal, when that first came, churches were fighting that, right? And so what it became was that anybody that was a Christian or Catholic, anybody that disagreed with it, well, you're homophobic and all this kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
So the thing is with marriage so what is marriage? Where does that come from? Where's it based at? Well, it's religiously based. It's a union between a man and a woman.
For Catholics, it's one of the holy sacraments.
That's correct. So, and the thing is, it's between a man and a woman under God, right? So the problem that the church had wasn't with two people of the same sex being, I mean, they do have a problem with it, but it wasn't the whole thing of them being together and wanting to, be able to have insurance and all this kind of stuff, which that has nothing to do with the church. That has everything to do with the state and making it a legal union, right? The problem with the church was that you're taking a holy thing and you're force feeding that to make a priest or a pastor or whatever you want to call them to marry people that they don't agree that should be married. They're not saying they don't agree they shouldn't be together, and under the church, of course, that they don't agree with that. However, it's two separate subjects. And this is the problem with a lot of this, is that there's, it's like the folks, what is it, in Washington that, refused to make a cake for a gay wedding or something like that. I think that
was Portland. I'm not sure.
Was it Portland and Oregon?
Yeah, I think so.
And, and they got all kinds of flack for that. It's like, okay, why would you care if there was an all gay bakery, right? That they only did stuff for the folks in the LGBT community, and I'm going to get married as a straight person. I'm probably not going to go there. I'm not going to tell them, hey, how dare you not bake a cake for me? And here's the thing. So like, for a company like that, I mean, they're going to get that many less customers, right? This is it doesn't make any sense for anybody to care one way or the other. You can go to somewhere else and you can hype another place up. So all of this force feeding only puts up more walls and more barriers and really draws people away from your whole thing. Is you're trying to have everybody be more open and everybody love each other more and everything. And we're having the complete opposite effect completely with all of this stuff that's going on. I don't feel like 10 years ago, we didn't have any of these issues. Everybody pretty much accepted everybody. Well, are there bigots? Are there racists out there in the world? Of course there are.
Here's a problem as a society that I think that we have here in the United States is that in the battle for equality, they turn themselves into racists. You know what I mean? Like we talked a little bit about affirmative action, right? There was someone on the internet. I can't remember his name, but he was he used to be a news anchor, but he put out a very, very good example, right? He went to the local mall and he put up a bake sale, right? And he put cupcakes. Asians, the price that he based it on race. Asians paid $1.50. White people paid $1, and blacks and Latinos paid 50 cents. So, and he had this stance there, right? At this little stand, and he's selling it. And there was a bunch of black people, the minorities, that go up there and say, that's wrong. That's racist. And he let them talk. Hey, that's not right, blah, blah, blah. But that's affirmative action. That's what that is.
It is.
You know what I mean?
100%.
You're allowing people who can't afford it the ability to afford it based on just it on their skin color, right? That doesn't make sense, you know.
Right.
Again, with it's the same thing with what was the other thing that they did was this whole thing with the we were just talking about this, that the baker that you mentioned, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, you go down any street, right? If there's a baker, there's going to be like three more, right?
Right.
So if you go down to one bakery, let's say that bakery, they specialize in wedding cakes. Are you going to go in that bakery to get your kid's birthday cake of, Power Rangers? Probably not.
Probably not.
Because
No.
if they do make it, it's probably going to be like,
It's gonna be expensive.
$600, right?
Yeah.
But people have that option. I just understand, why don't other people have that option? So to make a long story short, you cannot create an act that's called Equality Act when you are really violating other people's rights. I mean,
That's right.
equality means equal. The last I checked. I mean, I know I don't have the best, high school education from where we came from, right? But
Speak for yourself, man.
but the last I checked, equality means equal. So you can't base a act on civil rights by suppressing the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, right?
Right.
It just doesn't make sense to me.
And here becomes the problem with like slowly slipping this in and allowing it. So, people might say, well, if everything was 100% in your favor and not in ours, you would be okay with it. No, I wouldn't be, because it's a slippery slope.
It is.
You have people that are in power that don't care about us. They don't care about you. They don't care about anybody else. They care about themselves. And the thing is, whatever group they can manipulate the easiest and push their agenda on, and this isn't some conspiracy theory thing. This is
This
is power play, right?
Yeah.
When the Democrats are in office, who's pissed off? The Republicans. When the Republicans are in office, who's pissed off? The Democrats are, right? Wow. Hard to believe that that's the case with it.
Yeah.
But name one time that those people in office were perfectly serving the people that voted them in. Name one time, So it becomes more of a visual that we can see that, these folks have an agenda to manipulate, again, the groups that are the most manipulatable. And we have to realize that, and we have to make sure that we're staying vigilant in our thinking process and understanding that, they don't have our best interest in mind, right? No. When you go to a place like something as simple as going to a fast food restaurant, do you really think that place has your diet and your calorie count and all that? And they absolutely not. It's 100% profits. A perfect example is the Coca-Cola company. I think it's hysterical. That company is probably one of the more woke companies, right? They weren't on the list here today, but I know they're on one somewhere because they do everything in their power to stay woke. So they push towards the environmental charge and things like that. They are one of the worst companies in creating plastic and everything else that ends up in the ocean and everywhere else. So for all the environmental people, if you really want to say you care about something, you'll never drink Coke again, because that company very easily could make everything in recyclable aluminum, papers, and glass. They used to make glass. Why don't they do it anymore? Why is it all plastic?
Good job, Coca-Cola Mexico. They still make it.
Yeah, they do.
Glass.
Yeah, and they used to use real sugar. Now it's stuff that's really poisonous for you. And I mean, that whole thing, you should never drink it. It's horrible for you.
And cocaine.
But it's one of those examples of it's one of those examples of a company that says one thing and is doing something completely different.
A just company. Like that's most of them.
Yeah,
that's most. Well, companies,
I mean,
so
like I have nothing against like electric cars and stuff like that, but electric cars, I mean, that whole thing with the environmental stuff is off the charts, being that it's horrible for the environment what has to be done to procure the minerals and everything to make the batteries and everything else. Solar panels are
That's
another
besides
thing.
the point. How about the fossil fuel to charge them?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
Oh man, so
So
we got
yeah,
more
it's
good stuff
a
coming
lot
up
of
though.
hypocrisy. Yeah, more good stuff. So, all right, y'all. Well, this was part one of a part two-part series, and we will be back here same time, same bat channel next week. So, you
Yeah,
guys
we
stay tuned.
didn't go over everything that we wanted to on today, but next week we're going to finish it off with some more interesting figures and topics related to the HRC and the credit system that they've imposed onto our major corporations, hospitals, and municipalities. So be here next week, guys.
Crazy. Stay tuned. See you next week.
We'll see you.